standing your truth. Every voice matters, yeah, we see you. Love who you are, let the world know. This is your moment, let your light glow. More than a story, more than a name. We break the silence, rewrite the frame. Autism, neurodivergence, every mind shines bright. Mental health, self-love, stepping into the light. For the parents, the dreamers, the ones who push through, Auesomely you, we celebrate you. Oh, 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 oh. Auesomely you, we rise, we shine. Vowing voices, breaking the lines. This ain't just a podcast, this is a move. Celebrating every story, making room. For the ones who speak in ways they don't understand. For the hearts that love big, for the ones who take a stand. For the ones who see the world in a different way. We amplify your voice, let the world hear what you say. Every challenge, every win, every step you take. You are seen, you are loved, this is your space. No more silence, no more fear. Auesomely you, we're standing here. We are the voices, we are the change.
Hey you guys, it is Crystal Jordan and I am back with another amazing guest. I made it clear that Auesomely You is going to be the platform for us by us. Today I have another mom. I want us to take a moment to understand her journey, take a walk in her shoes for 30 minutes today, okay? Today I have Emely. She is a full-time stay-at-home mom to a teenage non-speaking son who's on the autism spectrum. She is Elijah caregiver while on his spare free time. Y'all know she's an advocate. She has a brand for sensory. And for me, my son's a sensory seeker. So I find that so cool that she created that. She is the founder of Sensory E, although not a nonprofit yet. I love what she said, not yet. She hopes one day to open facilities in different cities and states to accommodate better support for the needs of individuals who are neurodiverse. Without further ado, we're bringing Miss Emely. Hi.
Hey, Crystal. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you
First
for being
podcast.
here. When I found you and I saw what you did, I was like, A, I want to know her. B, I want to interview her. C, I want to feature her in Auesomely You magazine. And then I said, I'm going to do all of the things. So I want you to introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Thank you. I'm Emely Viscarra, and I am a mother and I'm a caregiver for my son Elijah, who is currently at home. He doesn't have a school placement. So I'm pretty much hands on 24/7 with my son. He is non speaking and he's on the spectrum. So I am having to do a lot of taking him to the restroom, feeding him, just basic care for him at the moment because he actually regressed a lot from his last school placement. There he goes. So he does a lot of vocal stimming, so my apologies in advance. But yeah, I
First, let
do.
me stop you right there. You do not
Okay.
have to apologize because he's vocally stemming. That's the point of this platform. My son vocally
Uh-huh.
stems too. Um, I just choose to. I personally choose to record late at night for
Uh-huh.
the audience. Don't hear that, but if they was to hear it and during the episode, oh well. So it's no. This is a one platform. You don't have to apologize for your
Thank
child
you.
or loved one making noises because to us it's not noises. That's the way. That's the way Elijah is communicating. So I
Yes.
didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to
No,
let you
you're
know.
fine. Thank you. And so, if I'm not, caring for my son, I step out into the community. So I am the founder creator of Sensory. Sensory came about based off of my son Elijah. He's always been a kid who has basically he's a sensory seeker, but he's also sensory sensitive. So he's sensitive to light, soundings, um, noise, but as well as he loves doing a lot of sensory play. So I decided to run with that whole sensory idea and take it out into the communities because I realized that there wasn't a lot of activities or things available at community events to accommodate those who had different needs and different interests. So I created Sensory on behalf of my son, but also for those who had different interests to accommodate those and make it more inclusive.
I agree with you. It's a lot of I get on my job about that sometimes that
Hmm.
when we have kid parties, it's not enough sensory things for kids who are on the spectrum. So what you're doing is needed, and I pray that your vision comes to life and you do have different facilities across the United States and beyond. So my next question I want to get into is, can you share a journey? Well, you already kind of did it, but I want you to dive a little bit deeper. Can you share your journey on what led you into being an advocate for Century?
So, like I said, it all started with my son Elijah, since he got diagnosed with autism at the age of 3. But I think it's more so of our personal journey. When I started him in school placement, it was a challenge. My son's never been a student who's been full time. He's been bounced around between classes, went from public to private schools, and I feel like I've always, it's always been an issue with his behaviors. They've always seen it where he was a kid who was aggressive, had challenging behaviors. And although, I've looked at placements and they tell me that it's an accommodating school placement, it's I've always been the parent that got the call, like, hey, you need to pick up your kid because he's, harming others, he's destroying, damaging property, he's leaving the school campus, his life is at risk because he's running into the street, unaware of his safety. So that pushed me to want to do more and to be an advocate for individuals like my son and just better support families just because I personally know myself the challenges that comes, in this journey. So, yeah, I think it's more so of our personal struggle or challenges in our journey that made me want to step out into the community and be an advocate.
And I think that is so beautiful about parents that I am meeting, that we are taking something that about our kids and we're turning it into a cause. And we're essentially creating a better society for others.
Hmm.
So, what does celebrating uniqueness mean to you, and how has it shaped your life?
I think celebrating uniqueness to me is celebrating an individual for who they truly are, with no judgments. So with my son Elijah, he's, if you see him, if you meet him, he's very different. Like I said, you know, he has autism, he's non-speaking, he does a lot of vocal stimming, he stims with his slime, he's unaware, doesn't really have social connection or contact with anyone, but we do trying to get him out there. So to me, it's really just celebrating someone's difference and their interests and just accepting them for who they truly are. And I think being unique and having a son who's, really different, I think it shaped my life in a way where it just makes me view life a little different. Everything has such a deeper, different meaning to me personally, just because of my son. And it makes me realize, like, that we need to do a better job with trying to understand individuals and trying to meet them and support them, even though they're different. So it's definitely taught me, Elijah has taught me a lot of patience, but also just to be much kinder and understanding and accepting in this world.
I agree. We do need more acceptance in this world. I remember when I first started my journey as as a advocate, my biggest thing was awareness. But
Hmm.
now I don't even really talk about awareness anymore. I talk more about inclusion, which is going to
Hmm.
segue into our next question. How have your experiences as an advocate for Century changed the way that you have viewed inclusion?
It has changed it in a way where, so with sensory, honestly, when I step out into community events, I'm the only vendor or person who's tabling at these events that actually accommodate individuals who are, neurodiverse or on the spectrum. And I think that made me realize, like, although it saddens me, it's an honor for me to be out there to do the work that I do to make it more inclusive. But I just wish, like I said, if there was more individuals or organizations doing what I was doing, offering the service and the assistant on site, then I think it would make events more inclusive because I know that there's nonprofit organizations and they hand out families like flyers and but at the same time these when they're coming with their kids, the kid is not having anything to, engage with or to play with. So with sensory, I provide the whole full on sensory experience on site so kids are able to meet their sensory needs while they're at my table. And I also provide fidgets, which, supports the kid with self-regulation. So that's another thing, parents love coming by. The kid gets a fidget, they're able to stim, they're able to be themselves, at my table, and they're able to actually play and interact with other kids.
So I want to give you some advice that God has told me to give to you. Have you
Mhm.
thought about sitting down with corporations and having them implement what you do? And you are the trainer and you charge them X amount of dollars for they can have inclusion and also support DEI for their brands. And you are the trainer for that. And you have a course. Like God, when you was talking, because it's only one of you, but if you can reach the corporations and create a system for them, that is us changing the world. I know
Correct.
that's
I
like,
agree.
yeah. So that's my challenge to you, because I had another question for you, but that's what came to my mind when you was talking, because a lot of corporations don't know what to do with sensory, and this goes into my next question. I'm gonna ask you another question about sensory. Can you give us three sensory strategies that you can do at any event? Like let's say you can't go to their city, but there's three things that an organization, a company, or a party planner can incorporate into their event that can make it more inclusive for our neurodiverse individuals.
So, three things. I think my first thing would be to incorporate fidgets. I'm really big on fidgets. So, with fidgets, it's like anything that's like self-soothing that the kids could, play with. It could be like a toy, a spinner. It could be little tubes of slime, anything that you could possibly provide for these kids who just want to get their hands on something or need something to be able to focus on. So fidgets is like my number one. I always make sure I have fidgets giveaway at my events. And the other thing, um, I would like to say to incorporate something. This is something new that I'm actually working on my event that's coming up. I would say something that's able to help the individual self-regulate, like a occupational therapy type of equipment. Like I know some kids prefer to rock, some kids prefer to spin, um, to bounce. So I know I'm going to be providing like sensory support materials as far as like occupational therapy. I think that's very important because a lot of times fidgets don't work for some individuals and they need something like an equipment support where they could just like bounce on top of a ball or jump on a little trampoline, just something that they're able to self-regulate, even something simple as like a weighted lap blanket. And the third, I would say, is hands-on sensory, if that's possible. And that would be anything that they're able to touch, like texture, textile. I usually try to offer a variety of textures, like whether it's the slimy sand or kinetic sand. Water play. I know a lot of kids love water play, rainbow rice. So things that they could just touch that helps a lot of individuals meet their sensory needs. So you could do either hands-on sensory or you could even just do visual sensory, as some kids are just visual sensory seekers.
I asked that question because my son is a sensory seeker. When I say y'all,
Hmm.
the sensory is like, I try to do a sensory diet, and anybody know what a sensory diet is? A OT therapist have to provide that. And me being an advocate, I kind of know what I wanted. So we went from there. I haven't done him a sensory diet in a minute, but I do know he have a sensory diet at school. So that's why
Very
I
good.
asked that question because he's a sensory seeker. Um, but some of my listeners may have kids that are sensory seekers as well. So I wanted to really touch on what you do because it's amazing that you really went into a area where it's overlooked and not thought of. Like I had a guest the other on another episode, and he said he felt like when he was younger he was not seen or heard.
Hmm.
And I asked him in 2025, do you feel like the autistic community is seen or heard? And he said yes. So as a fellow autistic person, I say thank you for making sure that they're seen and heard, and making sure we are seen and heard. I'm still accepting my diagnosis, y'all. I'm self-diagnosed. Took me 2 years to fully accept it. So we're not talking about me, but yeah. So I want to say thank you. So one of my next questions is, what is one misconception about sensory that you wish people will understand?
I would say one misconception is a lot of times people look at sensory play and they think it's just fun play. They don't really see the benefits behind sensory play. Again, having a son who's been big, huge on sensory, I know a lot of times I've had issues with school wanting to remove my son's sensory items, and I would, literally argue the case that sensory is needed to help these individuals self-regulate. So if we remove the sensory, um, they're not able to focus, they're not able to perform at their best. Um, they'll tell you that they'll perform better or they'll focus, but sometimes it's different for every individual. So I love the fact that you said that your son has a sensory diet plan because that was one thing I really had to advocate to get into my son's IEP because I wanted my son to have as much sensory break as possible. And I don't think it was something that they needed to work or earn. I believe that sensory should be incorporated throughout, their time in school because, like I said, it has many benefits. It could decrease behaviors. It helps them self-regulate and they're able to focus and perform better. So I think the misconception is, not to look at sensory play as just like fun play, but also not to remove it from individuals who really seek or need the sensory to be able to cope out there in the world that's, it's just so different for them and it's challenging. So just remember that sensory play has a lot of benefits and it also helps them gain skills as well. So
I agree with you. I think when a lot of parents don't realize that they can put it in their kids' IEP, I believe that my son having a sensory diet at school helps him because, like I said, he is a big sensory seeker. So I even came up with a sensory strategy at his IEP on the spot,
mhm,
and the principal was in a meeting, and everyone was like, "I love that." I said, let's put that in his IEP. And I personally, when I go into the school system, I'm his advocate versus his mom. I'm not his
mhm,
mom. I'm his advocate first. And I know people look at
yeah,
me like, "What do you mean you his advocate first?" I'm his advocate first because if I was a mom, I would not have thought to put a sensory diet within his IEP or to even email them sensory strategies that I want
yeah.
them to implement within the classroom. And I said in my email for all the kids in the classroom. Now, if they did it, I don't know. But knowing his teacher, she probably did. Because I said this should be for all of them. Don't just single Zach out for this sensory
Yes.
thing I'm requesting. If the other kids want to come over there and play in the sand or whatever I request, let them do it. So yeah,
Yeah.
and I do
I
think
love
that
that.
is. Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
really am an advocate. Like
Yes.
I can't make it up. Like I'll never forget the one time I went to my at my son's school. They have Special Olympics, and I went to the Special Olympics, and it was high. It was a high school there, and I saw the nonverbal girl. She was trying to talk to me, but what I
Hmm.
noticed, she had no communication device. She had no lanyard with AAC, pets or anything. And the boy was nonverbal too. So they were trying to talk to me. I got up. I found their teachers, and I asked them. I said, "Where are their devices?" And they looked at me. I said, and I stopped and I said, "I'm a mom, but hi, I'm Crystal Jordan. I'm an advocate, and I'm trying to understand why your students don't have an AAC device. I'm here with my son. My son is sitting right there. He's nonverbal, but
Hmm.
how?" And he said, "I understand what they want, but I said they're trying to communicate to me, and I don't understand what they want. That's a problem." So I'm an advocate with that. That's the end of this. It's more to that story because he was looking at me like he wasn't even mad. He accepted me very well. He said, "You were right." He said, "I'm so happy that you pointed that out." I said, "That's my job. That's what I do." So yeah, I'm an
Yeah.
advocate. Like if I see something, I'm going to communicate it. I'm going to
And
talk to you.
yeah. And I think that's necessary because there's some individuals who will just stay silent or ignore the fact that these individuals don't have access. I know with my son, he had an AAC and he used to use PECs. And that was something when he would come back home and I would see pictures of random students on his communication device. And I'm just like, are they not allowing him to use his device? So with the regression from using his device, his AAC device and PECs, it just it was very concerning. So there was a lot of reasons my son, he hasn't been in a school placement for 2 years now. And I personally feel like there isn't an appropriate or a proper placement for him at the moment, just because I feel like, when we talk about a private program that's very accepting, IEP plans, it's just a matter of like, are they really going to implement it? Are they really going to follow through with it? So whenever I see any kind of regression or change in behavior or
Hmm.
just his life being at risk like 3 times, almost getting hit by a vehicle, to me, it's just like I'm not going to risk putting my son in that situation anymore where it just seems like, is he even being considered as an individual, as a human? Because if we're not allowing them the access to communicate, to be able to communicate and seeing a lot of regression, I just don't see what's the point of him going to a school placement. And I've dealt with a lot of behaviors. So at home, I'm not dealing with too much like aggressiveness or challenging behaviors. I do deal with the vocal stimming, and he's older now. So I just wish I could get the home service, but that's a whole nother story. So
No,
thank goodness I run center.
we're gonna get into that. I have questions for you. So one of my questions is, see, this is the advocate in me, not the podcaster
Uh-huh.
in me. I have questions. Have
Uh-huh.
you with with those within those 2 years before, like let's backtrack to him being in school. Did you have the resources to get you a IEP advocate to be there?
I didn't have the resources. I want to say I think I was connected with GGRC, like the Golden Gate Regional Center. Again, that even with that service, my son didn't even have like a social worker. Like the workers were always changing, or they said they had to find a worker to be on his case. So I never, as a parent, I never felt really well supported. I've always felt like alone, didn't know what
Hmm.
I was doing. I've always listened to like whatever the teacher said, whatever they decided what was best for my son. I
Hmm.
just agreed. I think it wasn't until I want to say when I got him into his first private school placement, I got connected with this lawyer, And luckily, she was able to help me, and she's the one who actually inspired me to step up more and be an advocate for my son. Because she told me, she said, I think you're intimidated by the titles of the specialist, like the therapist, the teacher. And she said, you know what? You have the most important title in that room.
You're
You're
the
his
mom.
mother. Yeah.
Hmm.
And she's like, you know him best. I don't want you going in there and just agreeing with what these people are telling you about your son. You need to speak up for him. And so I think ever since I had that conversation with my lawyer friend, I realized like I need to put an end to this. I can't just keep going to these IEPs and just signing off and not advocating or recommending anything. Like I was always silent at these IEP meetings. I never felt like I just listened to them tell me what was wrong with my kid is not meeting these, he's not making any progress, he needs a
Mm.
one-on-one. So, and I was just like, I've always felt like defeated, but I also felt like it was just one against many. And again, if it wasn't for my lawyer friend, I probably wouldn't even be the advocate that I am today, because she's the one who really encouraged me to step up and and speak up for my son and let them know what I think is best for him. And I think as soon as I started doing that, school districts started to see me as a challenging parent versus a helpful
Yep.
parent,
Yep.
because they're just like, this mom's coming in and she's trying to call the shots and she's trying to recommend all these things. And I think they took it as a way where they're just like, oh, she's trying to tell us how to do our job, but that was never my intention. I was never trying to tell anyone how to do their job. I was trying to see how I can make the day, smooth for them, but also for my son, like he needed a lot of
Hmm.
support and I had to advocate for it.
I understand where you're coming from. Um, I have been labeled a difficult parent
Hmm.
with a particular teacher who I don't believe worked for the school system no more.
Uh-huh.
After some a challenging school year with my son,
Hmm.
she's the reason why I don't go into IEP meetings being a mom. I am not his mom in this meeting. You're talking to the
Hmm.
advocate. And I understand where you're coming from on so many sides. Because depending on the teacher, they will label you difficult.
Hmm.
But if we go in as a team, that's all that matters. The kid is the most important. The kid is who matter the most.
Yes.
Him getting the services or she getting the services is what matters. So, what I encourage you to do, if you ever get back into the mindset of putting him in school,
Hmm.
look at a school system in your area and talk to the special education department, like, and see how they act, how they talk to you, like their energy, and also get your IEP advocate who know who is in your state. Hopefully, you got free ones in your state. See, in Georgia, we have Georgia to Georgia, parents to parent, where you can find advocates and stuff. So I hope you have something in your area like that, because, or even in homeschool, he can still have an IEP. He can
Hmm.
still get services. He can still get all of those things in homeschool. So I just, as an advocate, as an IEP advocate, I wanted to make sure I tell you that, because you're doing a good job. It's just
Thank you.
unfortunate our kids are overlooked a lot. Our kids, especially the nonverbal ones, they're
Hmm.
overlooked. And praise the Lord, my son is in a amazing school with amazing leadership. That I don't have these problems, because my son have his class. 98% of his class is nonverbal.
Oh, wow.
None of them talk. I'm always there. I'm active.
Hmm.
I did the background check if I could be in his class. I'm always there. So
Nice.
yeah, I'm
Well, I mean,
I'm super there. But
that's
if the
another
teacher called
issue.
me today and say, Crystal, can you come? Can you come? Sure, I'll be there in 10 minutes. I'm at work, but let me tell my boss I'm about to leave. I'm I'm always there. I don't play, because I realize when they see you more, they won't they won't mess with your kids so much, because unfortunately you have parents that are overlooked because you're not there, you're not present. but I'm
Well,
present, so I need you to see me.
well, that's what I was gonna say. I think it's different out here because the schools out here, I feel like they're more secretive, they're more private. You have to schedule to get into the campus. And I always found that weird. Like, how come you can't just pop in and check up on your kid? Like they have to know that you're coming. So I just felt like,
Well, his school is like
it's
that too, to a certain extent. They're like that, but that's for safety. So I understand. It's really for safety, but
but I think also like the
when it comes to
parents were not much
observations,
involved.
I have to schedule.
Like they wanted me to have my son
Mm-mm.
picked up and dropped off. Like, I don't know. I don't feel like they wanted the involvement of the parents. I think they were so used to kids getting transported and like, public transportation. They didn't have to interact with the parents. I was probably one or two of the parents who came and actually picked up my kid, and I had to ask every day, like, how did he do? And I just felt like the there's a difference between workers that I feel like they're really in it for the right reasons because they don't mind, like they're open, they're honest, they don't mind me asking questions. And then there's the workers who I pick up my son
They
and they're
feel
just like
irritated.
they
Hmm.
get so irritated and they're giving me attitude, and I'm just like, my kid is nonverbal. I would ask my kid how's his day, but I'm not going to get a response, so that's why I'm asking you.
I feel the
I
same
don't
way.
know. It's
But
it's weird.
I have this thing. I feel you. I have this thing where in his IEP, I do a home to school
Uh-huh.
communication, and I require daily communication. I need to know how his day was, but it's to the point where I know his day, so I still require it. I still look at it. I still know his day to day. I know his new
Uh-huh.
behaviors.
Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, you have parents who don't know they can in the IEP. I can ask for that, and I want this in the documentation because the IEP is a legal binding contract. A lot of parents don't know that. A lot of people don't know that. So,
Uh-huh.
if you ever reconsider public school, just make sure you have an IEP advocate. He's in homeschool, he can have an IEP. So, and
Okay.
if somebody like watching this episode or listening, my awesome tribe, comment below and give us some resources. So we're gonna make this a little bit more fun. Like I told you already, I have this thing called Awesomely Fun. Keep it real segment. I hope my eyes are getting used to it. So I'm going to do this or that. So they're gonna be quick choices, no overthinking. So and it's just about you.
Okay.
Hiking or running,
Hiking. I'm not a
dancing,
runner.
dancing or singing.
I gotta go with dancing. I can't sing. I don't got the vocals. I'll dance.
Okay. Um. See, I always do these all top of my head because I want my audience to be like, "This is it's so much fun." Okay, it's date night. If you're single or not, are you gonna wear a red cocktail dress or a sexy black dress?
A sexy black dress. I love
Okay.
black. Keep it classy.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna ask you is awesome confessions. What is something you used to believe about yourself that you know now isn't true?
Ooh, that is tough. I think I used to believe that I was a very shy, quiet type of person. I've always seen myself to not really speak up and stand up for myself. But honestly, I think having a son that's on the spectrum and being in the position I am in now, I've realized that I have so much greater strength and authority and power to be an advocate and to speak up, for individuals and make changes. So I no longer see myself as that shy, weak, quiet person. I actually see myself as a loud, proud advocate in the community.
I love that.
I
I
mean,
love that. Like
maybe I'm still shy, but I mean, I do feel more. powerful, you know, I think due to my personal journey.
I really love that for you because I feel that sometimes before I start calling myself advocate, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And I would just Arthur who wrote a book and then people start calling me an advocate. And over time I became more and more seasoned to what everybody knows today. But we
Hmm.
have to start somewhere. A baby gotta crawl before they walk.
Hmm.
So I'm proud of you. Like
Thank
a
you.
mom, autism mom to advocate to advocate. I'm proud of you.
Thank you so
So
much.
you're so welcome. I told you this is the reason why I created this platform. This platform is created for exactly what we're doing today. And they like, this is why I created this platform. It's super important that other parents can find us and feel inspired by your story for 30 minutes. Just listen to your story or your advice, your resources for just 30 minutes
Hmm.
and see how it's going to impact your life. So
Well, thank you for offering this opportunity, you know.
you're so welcome.
There's
But before
not
we
a lot of space like this where you could just be yourself.
thank you, I'm so happy you said that because that's the vision behind also you, the magazine, the podcast, and so many other initiatives that I'm going to launch. So just thank you so much. Hopefully, we can get you to be a writer for Auesomely You and you can talk about some sensory things. So
I've always
hopefully,
wanted to
fingers
write.
crossed.
I wanted to write something for parents. You know, a lot of mothers are like authors of books, like for kids to
Hmm.
describe, neurodiverse. But I've wanted
Hmm.
to write something for the parents, like for the adults, to
Yes, I
leave
love
for
that.
them because I feel like us parents need support as well. You know, as much as we spread awareness, I feel like we also need to come out with something for not even those who are parents, but those like maybe family members or teachers or police officers, something that where we could educate and train individuals who don't know how to be hands on with our kids. I don't know. That was just a thought
Oh,
in my head.
you know what I feel? I feel a book
Instead of
coming.
going around and training people, like let's hand them a book and have them read that. And I get a lot of comments on my platform where they're just like, since you're so open, honest, and raw, like you share the good and the bad, we learn a lot, like, and we're just like teachers or therapists, but you give us a different insight. So
So when you dropping
I
your
don't know.
book,
I don't know. I'm
drop the
not a
book.
writer. Drop the book.
Okay. So
I'm not
I'm
a
going to
writer.
help. Nope. Nope. We're not speaking negative over here. I'm going to help you write that book. I'm going to personally help you with that. So me and you locked in. Um, before we wrapped up, I need you to tell my audience where they can find you, tell my listeners where they can support your business, and go from there.
Okay, so you can find me again. I'm Sensory. I'm on Instagram at Sensory Play. I'm also on Facebook under Sensory, and I have TikTok under at Sensory Play as well. You could also check out our webpage, www.sensoryplay.org, and that gives you a better idea of, the community events and what I do. So feel free to reach out, my email. So all social medias, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Thank you.
So before we wrap up, now we can get into my favorite part of the night. And it is, I would love for you to share affirmation that our listeners and our audience can take away from today's conversation. Something that reminds them to embrace their uniqueness.
Hmm. I think with me, the affirmation would be my thing is acceptance is always the answer, and it's always the solution to all the problems. Especially personally for me, I've always been the type to look for answers and trying to figure out why my kid is the way he is. But again, I have to just remind myself that when you accept them for who they truly are, you're not looking to trying to fix or trying to change anything about them. You're just allowing them to be who they truly are. So continue to celebrate those who are different, and just be understanding and be patient with them. And you'll be able to better connect with them if you enter their world versus trying to figure it out on your own.
All right, y'all. So the affirmation that she's leaving today is I accept who I am. I embrace my loved ones for their disabilities or their differences. Let's say it together. I accept who I am, abilities, or their hidden superpowers. You can word that last part how you feel. You thing she said is I accept who I am.
Yes.
So I just wanted to like the affirmation because affirmations helped me. Affirmations, it's a very powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
So
Better, yeah.
you're
Thank you, Crystal.
you're so welcome. So you host Crystal Jordan. I am the founder and creative of Auesomely podcast and magazine. And I also need you guys to support my guests. I need you to go on her website, purchase some things, or follow her on Instagram, or leave some comments. That is free. Just find a way to support us, and we appreciate you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you for being on here.
Thanks.
We rise, we shine, bowing voices, breaking the lines. This ain't just a podcast, this is a move. Celebrating every story, making room. For the ones who speak in ways they don't understand. For the hearts that love big. For the ones who take a stand. For the ones who see the world in a different way. We amplify your voice. Let the world hear what you say. Every challenge, every win, every step you take. You are seen, you are loved. This is your space. No more silence, no more fear. Awesomely you, we're standing here. We are the voices. We are